The 1970s wasn't just about fast and iconic motorcycles. It was also a time when designers seemed to be experimenting with a mix of imagination and questionable judgment. The result? Some of the ugliest motorcycles ever to grace, or disgrace, the road. Today, we're counting down the top 10 bikes from the 70s that left everyone scratching their heads. These aren't just bikes, they're masterpieces of misguided creativity. From weird fairings to awkward proportions, each one tells a story of a bold vision that, well, didn't age gracefully. Which one do you think takes the crown for the ugliest? Let's dive in and find out. Honda's CL360 Scrambler was supposed to be a rugged, versatile bike for riders who wanted a little off-road capability with their daily commuter. Instead, what they got was a bike that looked like it was designed by two teams who weren't speaking to each other. The 360cc parallel twin engine made 34 horsepower, decent for the time, but the aesthetics were another story. The high-mounted Scrambler pipes were meant to scream off-road adventure, but they ended up being a heat hazard for anyone unlucky enough to brush against them. The tank design, with its bulbous shape and uninspiring paint job, felt like an afterthought. And don't even get me started on the mismatched proportions between the spindly frame and the oversized headlight. Priced at $990, around $5,800 today, the CL360 was affordable but didn't turn many heads, at least not for the right reasons. Riders loved Honda's engineering, but this bike's looks made it the black sheep of the family. Despite its visual shortcomings, the CL360 was reliable and a decent performer, which is probably why it's still remembered fondly by some. Fun fact: many owners ended up modifying their CL360s to make them more visually appealing, proving that even ugly bikes can have a glow-up. The Suzuki R5 Rotary makes another appearance on this list, but not for its groundbreaking engine. This time, it's all about the looks, or lack thereof. The RE5 was Suzuki's bold experiment with rotary engines, but somewhere along the way, they decided it also needed to look like a spaceship. The bike's most infamous design feature was its cylindrical instrument cluster, affectionately, or not, dubbed the beer can. It looked more like it belonged on a kitchen counter than a motorcycle. The 497cc rotary engine delivered 62 horsepower, which was impressive, but the bike's awkward proportions stole the spotlight. The oversized radiator shroud gave the RE5 a bloated appearance, while the tail section looked like it had been glued on at the last minute. Even the headlight design felt out of place, giving the bike a confused, mismatched aesthetic. At $2,495, around $14,000 today, the RE5 wasn't just ugly, it was expensive. Riders were baffled by the design choices, and sales never took off. Today, the RE5 is a quirky collector's item, appreciated for its technological ambition more than its styling. Fun fact: the RE5's instrument cluster was so reviled that Suzuki redesigned it mid-production, but by then, the damage to its reputation was already done. Once again, Norton proves that even the best brands can have off days. The Norton Highrider was an attempt to jump on the chopper craze of the 1970s, but the result was less easy rider and more awkward rider. Built around the reliable Commando platform, the Highrider featured an 828cc twin-cylinder engine producing 58 horsepower. But let's be honest, nobody remembers this bike for its performance. The Highrider's defining feature was its ridiculous banana seat, which looked more like it belonged on a cheap carnival ride than a motorcycle. The high handlebars added to the bike's cartoonish proportions, and the overall design felt like a parody of the chopper style. Priced at $2,300 today, it wasn't cheap, but it certainly looked it. Riders who tried the Highrider quickly realized that its styling wasn't just bad, it also made the bike uncomfortable to ride. The seating position was awkward, and the high handlebars made handling a chore. Unsurprisingly, the High Rider was a commercial flop, and Norton quietly retired it from their lineup. Fun fact: the High Rider's design was so polarizing that even Norton's own marketing materials struggled to make it look appealing, an almost impossible task. Harley-Davidson is known for big, bold cruisers, but in the 1970s, they decided to downsize. Way down. Enter the Harley-Davidson X90, a mini bike that somehow managed to look even smaller than it was. With its 90cc two-stroke engine producing a whopping 5 horsepower, the X90 was intended for younger riders or those looking for a fun lightweight bike. Unfortunately, its styling made it look more like a toy than a serious machine. The X90 featured stubby tires, an oversized seat, and a tank that looked like it had been borrowed from a much larger bike. The proportions were all wrong, making it look like a caricature of a Harley rather than a real motorcycle. Priced at $360, around $2,100 today, it was affordable, but even at that price, it struggled to win over buyers. Despite its awkward looks, the X90 was surprisingly durable, and some of them are still kicking around today. Collectors appreciate them for their rarity, but they're definitely more of a novelty than a classic. Fun fact: the X90 was nicknamed the Shortster, which perfectly sums up its place in Harley-Davidson history, as an odd little footnote. The Ducati 860 GT is proof that even Italian design can miss the mark. Introduced in 1974, the 860 GT was Ducati's attempt at a modern, angular look, but the result was more awkward geometry than sleek styling. Powered by an 864cc V-twin engine producing 60 horsepower, the bike performed well, but its looks were another story. Designed by Giugiaro, the same man behind iconic cars like the DeLorean, the 860 GT featured sharp, boxy lines that clashed with Ducati's typically curvaceous designs. The tank, seat, and side panels all seemed to exist in their own worlds, creating a disjointed appearance. Priced at $2,200, about $13,000 today, it was a tough sell for buyers who expected more elegance from Ducati. The 860 GT's styling was so unpopular that Ducati quickly released revised versions with more traditional aesthetics. Collectors today appreciate the bike for its unique place in Ducati's history, but even they admit it's an acquired taste. Fun fact: Giugiaro's design was intended to make the 860 GT look futuristic, but instead, it made the bike look dated almost immediately, a rare misstep for one of Italy's most celebrated designers. The Triumph X75 Hurricane wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a rolling art project. Designed by American Craig Vetter, the Hurricane was intended to appeal to the U.S. market with its bold styling and vibrant orange paint scheme. But while it may have been bold, it was also bizarre. The triple-cylinder 741cc engine produced 58 horsepower, which was respectable, but the aesthetics turned heads for all the wrong reasons. The most divisive feature of the Hurricane was its 3-in-1 exhaust system. While it was meant to look sleek and modern, it instead resembled a jumble of metal spaghetti. The oddly proportioned tank and seat added to the bike's strange appearance, making it look more like a concept bike than a production model. Priced at $1,800, around $10,000 today, it wasn't cheap, but it did attract a niche following. Despite its unusual looks, the Hurricane is now considered a collectible oddity, valued for its rarity and quirky design. Fewer than 1,200 were made, making it a sought-after piece of Triumph history. Fun fact: the Hurricane's styling was so polarizing that even some Triumph dealers were reluctant to stock it, fearing it wouldn't sell. Today, it's a cult classic among collectors. BMW's R65 LS was supposed to be a sleek, sporty version of the R65, but instead it ended up looking like a box on wheels. Designed by Hans Muth, the same man behind the legendary Suzuki Katana, the R65 LS featured a 648cc flat twin engine producing 50 horsepower. While it performed decently, its styling left riders scratching their heads. The R65 LS's most polarizing feature was its angular front fairing, which looked more like it belonged on a sci-fi spaceship than a motorcycle. The sharp lines clashed with the bike's otherwise traditional BMW design, giving it an awkward, unfinished appearance. Even the paint options, which included a flat red and gray, did little to make the bike look more appealing. Priced at $3,200, about $18,000 today, the R65 LS was aimed at riders who wanted a sporty yet practical bike. Unfortunately, its styling overshadowed its performance, and sales were underwhelming. While the R65 LS has its fans today, it's more often remembered as an aesthetic misstep in BMW's otherwise impressive lineup. Fun fact, despite its looks, the R65 LS was known for its reliability and comfort, proving that you really can't judge a bike by its fairing, no matter how strange it looks. Moto Guzzi's V1000 i-Convert was groundbreaking for its time, featuring an automatic transmission, a rarity in the motorcycle world. But while its technology was innovative, its design was anything but. The V1000 i-Convert's bulky, clunky appearance made it look more like a scooter on steroids than a high-performance touring bike. Powered by a 948cc transverse V-twin engine, producing 71 horsepower, the V1000 i-Convert was actually quite capable on the road. However, its oversized fairing and awkwardly positioned saddlebags made it look like it was perpetually stuck in a wind tunnel. The bike's proportions felt off, with a large tank that dominated its profile and left little room for aesthetic finesse. Priced at $3,500, about $20,000 today, the V1000 i-Convert was aimed at long-distance riders who valued comfort over style. While it performed well in its intended role, it failed to win over riders who wanted a bit of flair with their functionality. Fun fact, the V1000 i-Convert's automatic transmission was adapted from Moto Guzzi's experience with police bikes, making it a favorite among law enforcement agencies, though it probably wasn't winning any beauty contests there either. Kawasaki Z1R was an attempt to create a sportier, more aggressive version of the legendary Z1, but instead, it ended up looking like it was designed by someone who hated curves. Released in 1978, the Z1R featured a 1015cc inline-four engine, producing 90 horsepower and a top speed of 130 miles per hour. While the performance was impressive, the bike's angular, boxy design left riders scratching their heads. The Z1R's most divisive feature was its wedge-shaped fairing, which looked more like an afterthought than an integrated design element. The flat paint schemes didn't help, giving the bike a dull, lifeless appearance that failed to capture the excitement of its performance. Priced at $3,995, around $22,000 today, the Z1R was aimed at riders who wanted a high-performance bike with modern styling. Unfortunately, the styling was so polarizing that many buyers opted for the more traditional Z1 instead. Today, the Z1R is appreciated for its performance, but its looks remain a point of contention. Fun fact: despite its boxy design, the Z1R was a favorite among custom builders, who often stripped away the awkward fairing to reveal its underlying potential as a cafe racer. Taking the crown for the ugliest motorcycle of the 1970s is the AMF Harley-Davidson Electra Glide. While the Electra Glide is an iconic model in Harley's history, The versions produced during the AMF era are remembered for their questionable design choices. The 1200cc shovelhead V-twin engine made 58 horsepower, and while it was adequate for long-distance cruising, the bike's aesthetics were a far cry from Harley's usual rugged charm. The AMF Electra Glide featured an oversized batwing fairing that looked more like a poorly attached plastic shield than a cohesive design element. The bloated saddlebags didn't help, giving the bike a clumsy, top-heavy appearance. To make matters worse, AMF's cost-cutting measures led to quality control issues, meaning many of these bikes didn't just look bad, they also didn't perform up to Harley's standards. Priced at $4,400, around $25,000 today, the AMF Electra Glide was a hard sell for Harley fans, many of whom lamented the brand's decline during this era. Today, these bikes are often restored and customized to erase the design flaws of the past. Fun fact, the AMF era is often referred to as the dark ages of Harley-Davidson, and the Electra Glide is a prime example of why. And there you have it, the top 10 ugliest motorcycles of the 1970s. While these bikes may not have won any beauty contests, they certainly left a lasting impression on the motorcycle world. Whether it was awkward proportions, bizarre fairings, or just plain bad luck, each of these bikes has its own unique story. But hey, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and many of these machines have found a second life as quirky collectibles. Which one do you think deserves the crown for the ugliest? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more.